You've landed at Spark Launch, the guide star for embracing what it means to be neurodiverse. Here, we navigate mental health triumphs and tribulations from all across the spectrum, charting a course through the shared experiences that unite us, and discovering how to embody the unique strengths within neurodivergent and neurotypical alike, igniting your spark and launching it into a better tomorrow. Today, we're talking with Katy Johnson, a registered nurse who discovered later in life that she's neurodivergent, completely reframing her understanding of her healthcare career and personal journey. She's recently founded Reciprocity KC, a nonprofit bringing wellness support directly to burned out healthcare workers.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Katy. Just share where you're coming from, what your inspiration is. How have you come to where you have arrived right now in this moment?
So my neurodivergent timeline doesn't go back very far. I was 38 and that was it was just random. I was just talking to someone. I was saying how I procrastinate when I don't know instructions how to do something. I want it to be perfectionist. And she was like, did you know that that's also a symptom of ADHD? And so we kind of started talking about it. Of course, as ADHD, I went on a deep dive down my little rabbit hole. And then I didn't get formally diagnosed. What I didn't expect in the formal diagnosis was also that I have social phobia. So a lot of my anxiety, or probably most of it, comes from social situations. And I can't believe I didn't put those pieces together. So that's where that came from. So 38, very interesting looking back. I'm a nurse. That's where reciprocity, the seed, really comes from. I made it through school. I did really well. Nursing school was hard, but I was able to do it. So if you looked at my educational background, I went on to get my bachelor's and my master's. But me looking back with how I felt inside, I was always daydreaming, very distractible. Mindfulness is my Achilles heel. So there were definitely some signs.
It must have been such a relief when you got that diagnosis and everything started making sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I am medicated and it does help me. I'm not saying that's for everyone, but that was just one piece of it. And looking back, it helped me feel so much better. It also made me a little sad. And I know one other friend of mine who's adult diagnosed, she had the same feeling. Is I was so mean to myself. I, for years, was going to my doctor, my therapist, saying I used to be so productive. I used to have a schedule. I used to meal prep all my meals. I had a job. I went to school. I could do all these things. What is wrong with me? Why? And so once I had the diagnosis, I had to go back and honestly forget myself. I was the worst to myself. It wasn't the world. So it's bittersweet, understanding, but also a little sad.
Because we have all this deep trauma just inside of us. And it's decades of emotional stuff. And so when it comes out, I remember one time I just cried in front of a patent lawyer because we were just talking about the platform. And all she did was lend an empathetic ear. And that's all I needed. I just bawled for 30 minutes. And so I understand it's just a lot of stuff that's inside. For instance, just being on this platform, I believe would be healing because you're just talking, getting it out of your system. And so I'm grateful that you're here. And so you've gone through those challenges and now you want to give back.
I had a really great career. I worked with some of the best people, some of my closest friends today I worked with. And work was so much fun. I love working with kids. I worked at the Children's Hospital and I got to work with my friends all day. And in the moment, I didn't feel like anything was wrong. It was always in hindsight. And when I moved positions, that's when I would look back at the previous one and be like, oh man, I was really burnt out. That's why I took this phone call or took this opportunity. And when I actually left the hospital and went to the industry side working for a diagnostic company, that's when I really was like, oh my gosh, there's so much sadness and grief and frustration and everything that I had just been building and building and building because there is not time in your day to deal with that. There's not really a space in the hospitals. And unfortunately, I didn't really have that at home. I probably would have if I would have reached out to my village, my sisters, my friends, but I didn't know. Now that I can kind of see what it did to me internally and how I had to work through it, I don't want anyone to work through that. And I want people to know, like, you're not supposed to carry all. There's so many high burnout areas of healthcare, but pediatric oncology, like, that is not normal. The things that we see on a daily basis, they kind of become normal, but it's not. And I just want nurses, doctors, everyone to know, like, you need to take care of yourself. Like, you may not see it, you may not feel it while you're in it, but that is something that is happening. Like, your body remembers. It got so much worse when I became a mom, which I loved. I loved every second with my kids, and I was not at work, but I definitely wasn't giving to myself. And I see that so much in my community, not just with my nursing friends, but a lot of times them too, is they just never stop caregiving. And I don't know many people that can sustain that for long periods of time. So that's where reciprocity comes in, is hopefully education, sometimes just being a safe space for these people to come and be like, this extremely messed up situation happened at work. And, there's HIPAA laws and stuff. You can't talk to people outside of work a lot, even if you can. And, you have to talk about these things, but there's not that many people that you can actually go into the weeds and talk about what your job really is, because if you're not in that world, people can't handle that kind of sadness and loss and grief. And so that's why I want to build this community. I want it to be focused on things, wellness, somatic wellness, yoga, Pilates, things that are scientifically documented to help with this, but also just have a community that healthcare workers can, call their own. If they need to grieve, they know they can do it with us.
Because what happens is, if you don't have that release with yoga or meditation or any other form of release built into your everyday life, you're just soaking it in. You soak it, and you can soak it for years, decades, and it's going to explode. And so these different methods, different ways of releasing, it can be anything. It can be art, it can be running, it can be yoga, it can be meditation, whatever that person likes and wants to do is so, so important.
I mean, there's so many studies, like even like dancing, shaking, just moving your body, like getting out of your own head. And like I said, mindfulness is my Achilles heel. So yoga is very challenging for me. It's not something I immediately tap into and enjoy. It is a challenge, but I know that's what I need. I know that I need to have some kind of movement involved to reach that state of mindfulness. And the way I feel after, the clarity that I have, I mean, the ideas for how to start reciprocity and what I wanted to build came to me during a yoga class. So, I mean, that's proof, but there's also scientific data to show that too.
Why do you think it's difficult for people to talk about and address compassion fatigue?
I mean, one of them, and this is just my opinion, but like I said, it's a female dominated space, and societally, I do feel like females are supposed to just kind of be okay. Like, and even in hard times, people would check on me and I would be a mess. I'm like, I'm fine. That's just what you say. And then you add on to your role is to make other people feel okay. Your job is to take care, especially in pediatrics, you're not just taking care of the patient. You kind of are taking care of their parents. Like, they're your patient too. There's a lot of, like you said, compassion that you have to give to other people. So it's kind of ingrained in the profession. I think in females to not have needs, to not express their feelings. I know from like me being vulnerable and sharing my story, which makes me deeply, deeply uncomfortable. That's not common. Like a lot of people, I think people are holding in these big stories and tragedies and things that have hurt them, and people just don't talk about it. It's not as normalized.
And I think that goes to the idea of what your nonprofit is called reciprocity, which is that give and take, moving backwards and forwards idea that compassion is something that is given in these roles. And there's not a lot that's ever given back in exchange for it. So there's not an even energy exchange there. So what led you specifically to choosing that as the name?
I'm a metaphor person. So one of my metaphors, I would tell this to myself. If I met any new moms or people that are having kids, it's what I tell is you can't pour from an empty cup. And a lot of people don't know that. And so it's kind of that is like, you can't pour from an empty cup. Something's got to refill the cup. Recycling, you're right. It can't just constantly be flowing out. And that's another piece of this that I really want to bring the community into. I know so many people respect healthcare workers, and I never got any judgment. All I got was praise when I said what I did. It was ingrained in my profession that people would be like, oh, wow, I can't believe you do that, which is great. However, I do think that the communities could do more for the healthcare providers. I know the hospitals can't do it. Like, their job is to save the patients, not to save their staff. And I'm not expecting a patient to immediately get well and be like, well, now I owe my nurse something. That's not it at all. But I'm saying is like, when people are well, when they're healthy, your family members, like, I'm sure everyone knows a family member or a close friend that is a healthcare provider, is just going out of your way a little bit to help them, or making a small donation or something so they can get something back, is so important. The healthcare workers, they have to acknowledge that they need help, that they need to take time for themselves, that they need to make this a priority, but also they need to know the support is there. And I think building the community will really be helpful, because not a lot of people are just going to jump into trying something new without knowing there's going to be people there to catch them.
Yeah. And you brought about such an important point about this industry being dominated by female, and somehow the society expects the woman to be just giving all the time without receiving, because that's what they do. That's what they've done in the past. But as we've been talking about, and as what Mike said, you need the energy to flow in. There has to be that cycle. And it's so unfair to just say the woman needs to just keep nurturing without receiving, because it's her duty to do it. And if you look at the history, the past times, that's what women did. They were at home. They took care of them, but nobody asked how they did, if they were able to express the masculine energy that's there within them, because we all have both. And if one of them is suppressed, it will come out in weird ways, painful ways. So we need to be able to express everything. So you just coming out, doing what you're doing, is empowering that masculine energy within yourself to go step into leadership and do what you love for others. I think that is the formula for peace. If we detach from what society says.
You said ask.
Yeah.
And that's the key too, is like I said, I had support. I could ask. Like when my daughter was born, I was still working 12s. So 3 days a week, she didn't see me at all. So those other 4 days a week, I did not leave her side. I wouldn't take an hour to go to the gym. I wouldn't do anything. I didn't know, I didn't know I could ask for help. And I'm just kind of stubbornly independent. But that's the thing, is you can't rely on people. Like, this is a way of offering help without people asking, because a lot of people don't know how to do that, or they feel like this burden, like, I chose this area of nursing. I have to take all that comes with it, or any area of healthcare, any role, or being a parent. It's like, I want to be a parent. I chose this. And those things are all true, but that doesn't mean you have to give more of yourself than you have. Like that doesn't, honestly, it probably doesn't benefit the person you're giving it to, the patient, the child either, or yourself.
And if you overextend, there is an element of frustration within you, within anybody, right? Because they're doing what's not natural. And that will lead to frustration. And then the patient can feel it, right? So energy is leaving our system. And if it's a low vibration energy, the other person can feel it. So it's important to fill up that cup and then share how much we should, and learn to say no. Learn to say no.
I mean, there's a saying, like, the person who feels appreciated will always go above and beyond. Every time that I look back and I was burnt out, like, those were not my best patient care days. Like, I was not holding as much space, like compassion fatigue, that you put that on the nurses. But yeah, I mean, that goes to the patients too. I was not able to offer my patients as much compassion as they need. And everyone who, no matter what they're in the hospital for or wherever they're being treated, like, they're there because they need help. They deserve compassion. Like, no one should have to earn that. But yeah, when I was feeling burnout, it affected my work. I was not giving the best of myself.
And you mentioned something earlier that is, I think, important to point out for just people's psychology, honestly, that healthcare workers do get a lot of praise when they do that job. Everybody always says, thank you for doing that. It's so amazing that you do that. We have a mentality that we have from when we're children to adults that is very common for people when they ever get that praise for something they're doing, or they are essentially told that they should be proud of what they're doing, that there should be pride in it. It's very hard to then go, oh, but I'm actually having a really hard time doing this. Speaking from a neurodivergent perspective, it's very common for those on the spectrum to have a lot of identity issues. And when you have identity issues, you tend to start connecting yourself to things that people say you're good at, or say that, oh, it's great that you'd like recognize you for, because, hey, you're actually being seen as something. And that makes you double down even harder on, well, I can't be seen as having a difficult time. I have to keep pushing through. I can't say that I'm otherwise it might be seen that I'm complaining or whatever else. So what are, from your time in that, how did your neurodivergent traits sort of manifest kind of negatively whenever you're going up against the grain of the job?
When I was in patient care, I think it was hidden really well. And I would guess there's probably a high proportion of neurodivergence in healthcare because it is multitasking. That is what you do. You're constantly moving, beeping, phone calls, all these things. So I was doing great there. I really noticed it when I left. When I was in an industry that offered a lot more freedom, didn't have as much structure, and I was working from home and I was responsible for creating the systems and expense reports, that's when it really comes in. And, I've had people say, like, why can't you just do this like this? Back to what you were saying about like my identity being with the hospital, like that's the same thing is when I would say like, I'm having a really hard time, a lot of people would just say to me, then quit, then leave, then go somewhere else. And that's one, kind of dismissive and not really helpful, but that you're absolutely right. But my passion was there. This was my passion, and I don't shy away from hard things. So yeah, it's just, I think misunderstanding is the hardest thing. Like if a task comes easy to someone else in this industry or nursing, or if a family, or if they're just like, oh, well, if it's hard, go to easy. It's just feeling misunderstood. Luckily, because I have put myself out there and been vulnerable with friends, with community, like I found other people, and I do feel there's other people that feel that way, but it took a while. I distinctly remember saying to someone, like, now that I'm not a nurse at the hospital I worked at, I was like, I need to do something so people know that I'm a good person. And I was probably true that the something I needed to do was some self-compassion. It wasn't really anything I did put out into the world. Yeah, it's hard. Your identity is definitely tied to that. And admitting that you have flaws or things you struggle with is also really hard.
Detaching from that known identity is one of the hardest things that you can do, because now you're left without one. But that is the most beautiful thing, because now you can evolve into that next phase, but it is uncomfortable. And I love what you said, because you said you came here to do good, right? Because that is always eating us. And once you start doing it, you feel good, right? You feel, yes, I'm heading towards that. And it's not easy, especially when you become an entrepreneur. You have to figure out your ways, and that is uncomfortable. So how do you envision this community to grow? What is your vision to serve? And what is your biggest dream?
My biggest dream, I'll stick with reciprocity, but what I'm hoping to build is, it's not something that I want to be. I don't want it to be my thing. I don't want it to be my place. I want it to be a place, just its own separate thing. And I would envision it being in cities all across the country, just a space, not a yoga studio, not a Pilates studio. Obviously, we have those, but an accessible place. So donation or free classes, because I couldn't afford the things I do now when I still worked in the hospital. So that was one barrier. And then offering, making space for people, making them know that it's okay to take time for yourself, and having it a community where they know they belong. That's why it's healthcare workers. Like, you can come covered in blood, puke, whatever, and you're welcome. You can come and tell us the saddest, scariest story. You can come and talk about something really gross. We spent lunches talking about disgusting patient things every single day, and you'll be accepted there. You don't have to put on a face. You don't have to say you're okay. Like, come as you are. And if that means that you come as a nurse that is feeling really underappreciated, that is really sad, that is really burnt out and wants to complain about this life, this passion that you chose, absolutely do that. So all of that tangibly looks like, a kind of a wellness collective is my dream for these. And I don't really necessarily want to do it all. I think that there are a lot of people out there like me that are realizing that they need this or the community needs this. And so I just want to kind of build the framework, build the model, and then help people set those up.
I really think hospitals should pitch in for this. It's not just about making money. It's really everybody. And they should take this responsibility to look at their employees. We see this everywhere, right? Organizations with the neurodivergent community, they don't feel they fit into the organizations because they don't feel cared. And so hospitals should really step up. I hope someone's listening and they say, at least, we'll make a change in our hospital and give the space. And I really think that you should be paid for it because it's an energy exchange. Anything that you give, money is an exchange of energy, and you should be honored for your work.
And that's why, when we build this out, like I said, a wellness collective, there's other things that I do, everyone doesn't have the same spiritual beliefs that I do, but I found a lot of different healing modalities and different techniques that have really helped. It took me a while to be able to connect with my body. I was a pretty tense person. So there's lots of those things. And that's what I want to find people in the community that want to give back, that want to donate 4-hour block of time to get back to healthcare workers, or that we can compensate them due to donations. And I absolutely agree with you that the hospitals would. In an ideal world, every hospital would have their own place, but I don't want it to be associated with the hospital. No offense. I know that there are a lot of really good people in hospital leadership, and I'm not saying that they don't try, but the place that is breaking these nurses, doctors, whatever, is not going to be the place that heals them. Those are the places for the patients to heal. I want this to be outside. I want it to be very aesthetically pleasing, nice, calming place. But yeah, it would be great for the hospitals to give back, because honestly, any person, hospital, business that pours into this, like, you are giving back. Like you said, that energy exchange, it is going to be noticeable. Maybe not you in the hospital, but maybe it's your friend, maybe it's your kid, maybe it's someone. And people that are taking care of themselves, you're going to get better care from them.
From a nuts and bolts perspective, I'm curious, what is the experience like of starting a nonprofit with neurodivergent traits like ADHD?
Yeah, with the ADHD and a nursing degree, it is tricky. I'm trying to utilize what's already out there. I don't want to reinvent the wheel, but that is exactly why I hope to, once I figure out these things, is kind of build a framework. So I can have someone from California, New York, wherever, come to me and say, like, this is really cool. We need one here. And I could just, here you go, follow this to-do list, because we need checklist. That's my plan. That's my goal. But I am still figuring it out on the fly. And if anyone already has figured this out and wants to help me, there's no shame. I'll take all the help I can get.
We need a community, and we can solve this only by helping each other out, because we all have unique skills and talents. And if we can all pull that talent together, we can heal the planet.
Oh, absolutely.
Switching gears a little bit, there's something I wanted to ask. Your bio mentions, and you mentioned it briefly, the social-phobia diagnosis. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience? Like, how does that show up for you?
That shows up for me. I think it shows up most in like perfectionism. I'm a fairly intelligent person. I have a lot of experience in things, but I like clear directions. If I don't know exactly what is expected of me, it makes me really nervous and it makes me not want to do things. So even going to a party, showing up to new things, now that I'm in the biotech industry, there is a lot of customer events, congresses, dinners, and what is the dress code? There isn't one, but there are, unsaid expectations. It's things like that. And I do have a very extroverted career, so a lot of people don't know this. It's a lot of just internal feeling. Like, I don't feel very comfortable in my own skin in public very often. I have to really get to know people to feel comfortable. So it's just that feeling of anxiety just walking through a grocery store. Kind of.
I don't do crowds either, so I kind of feel you on the grocery store bit. I think that's also a common misconception when it comes to socialization issues is there's always this image that those with social phobias are always, in the dark and they're like never leave. It's very confused with agoraphobia. The fact is we can put ourselves in those positions. It's very, very difficult and it's draining. And sometimes it can be very damaging, but we are capable of it. Now, the question, of course, is should we have to be capable of it in so many instances when a lot of things just aren't called for? I think is like the more interesting question to ask. But yeah, it's a misunderstanding of like what it truly means to be phobic and be someone who struggles with high levels of social anxiety. Before you had a name to it and truly understood it, what were your go-to coping mechanisms?
A glass of wine was my go-to coping mechanism for social situations. I used to joke, whether it be work, mingling with coworkers, networking, going on first dates. It's like, I can do anything with a glass of wine. And I'm not proud to admit that. And I actually have quit drinking since, but it was either that or just shutting off those internal parts that sometimes were screaming at me, like, you don't feel comfortable here. And sometimes there's situations that I have to put myself into, or I choose to put myself into. Like, I love my job, but it is very extroverted. A lot of people that meet me wouldn't be like, oh, she's such an introvert. But like work meetings, as soon as those elevator door close, I'm basically dead inside. So it's about how I refeel. And there's still some anxiety with that, but for a long time, because I was like, oh, I'll just have a couple of drinks and that'll make me comfortable. There were situations that bad anxiety that was telling me, you don't belong here, that I just ignored it for years in a lot of different situations.
Yeah, you just force yourself into that situation and you trick your mind, but you're hurting your body with alcohol.
No, I just told myself internally, like I said, I was very rude to myself for a very long time, is no, it's not this situation that's wrong, or it's you. You are the problem. There's something wrong with you. You're too emotional. You don't, you didn't say the right thing. It was always, internal. It's always blaming myself.
It's that internal dialogue. And the second you switch it into a positive dialogue, everything shifts, but that's work.
And, setting boundaries is hard. Being honest about that is hard, especially when other people aren't there, haven't realized it, or don't know what the experience is like. And when you have been a person that has ignored your own comfortability for a long time, when you set boundaries, people don't necessarily like it. But there's been a lot of hardship that's come from that, from setting boundaries and taking myself out of situations where I didn't feel valued and comfortable. But I'm happier with myself, and internally, it feels a lot better.
Which is the most important thing, your own happiness.
And just admitting
self-love.
And like, I love being alone. Like, just admitting that and not like feeling uncomfortable. No, I love alone time. I love quiet. I love reading. So not pretending like I don't is great.
A lot of times we live for others and that's not helpful. So just reclaiming that love and being fine, just being alone, doing what you want to do, and then show up when you want to do. It's all on your terms.
It's a big contradiction, pretty much everything about me, because the ADHD, has these traits, and then the social phobia in it. So like for a person that spends their life craving peace and comfortability, I'm constantly putting myself outside my comfort zone, challenging myself. So it's just, it's every day is a different experience with having both of those.
That's the fun part of ADHD. What would you say your advice would be to those who are looking for self-acceptance in that realm and looking to better be kind to themselves?
There's a lot of different ways that you can connect your mind and your body. Therapy, I'm a big fan of talk therapy. And there are ways, like, there's a lot of ways to increase your neuroplasticity, to change and to break these patterns. But I think for me, one of the things is I have to talk to people. I have to talk about it. I have to get it out, because if it stays in my head, it's just on a constant loop of doubt. And if you're already in that place where you're not giving yourself compassion, like you really can't trust what your mind is saying about you. I think community that's my advice, is whether it be a friend, a therapist, a coworker, whoever is, take that step, be be brave, be vulnerable, and just be like, I feel this way. Because a lot of things that I was thinking about myself and believing were true, once I said them out loud, someone, when you tell that to someone else, then they can tell you like politely, like, girl, you're crazy. That's not true. Sometimes you need that mirror, that person outside of you. So I think reflecting is really important, but you got to have your community. You got to have your village. So just let it out.
Yeah. And I think that's like the way you put that, your village, like that's the really key thing here. And that's something that's overlooked is you get to decide who you let in. You get to decide who is your community. So much of what's those who are introverted and deal with social anxiety, they're always having to go across the street to everybody else. And it's never brought up like, well, why isn't somebody ever across the street for you? Why doesn't someone decide to step off the curb and meet you halfway? There's a lot of power you can both give back to yourself and take back, but also create for yourself in saying like, I want certain levels of socialization. I want levels of community. I get to decide on what that is and what that looks like for me. I don't have to go off of what's other people's notions of that concept are. I don't have to surround myself with people who don't get that or don't respect where I am. Sometimes for those with social anxiety, most of my friends also have social anxiety. And it's great because then sometimes we just want to be quiet and just exist around each other more or less. And we don't need to be out and about doing things. It's great. Like sometimes you want to do that in a safe, buffered environment. And then sometimes you don't. And yeah, I would much rather just sit alone and read. And we all have that effect on each other where we allow ourselves to go into our caves and unwind from the social stressors of every single day.
I'm from a very big family. I'm one of seven. Both my parents are one of seven. And I have a big family full of a lot of really great and really loving people. They're not really my village. And it took me a long time to realize that. And that's the part of self-compassion too, is you have to be able to really locate your situation. Like if you don't feel good in the room, are you in the right room? Because for me, it wasn't the right room. And it's not about them being bad people. It's about me and where I was comfortable. So yeah, you do have to go out there. It is so much more fulfilling. And having those conversations and being open with people and saying like, I really do love you and I want to spend time with you in parallel. I want to be in the same room with you and I want to do my thing and you do your thing. And that's, I think, very, very common. And luckily, yeah, I seem to attract other people with the same diagnosis as me. So it tends to work out. But if I wouldn't come out and say that, who knows if I would have found them.
Yeah, we are always exchanging energies right now as well. Three of us sitting in this virtual room, we're exchanging energies. We have to be mindful of which room we are in because that exchange is happening and we don't want to take in energy that's not going to serve us.
We talked about with healthcare workers and taking care of yourself and how that gets back to the patient, but it's not just like, I think in relationship or friendships, it's not just like, I love this person, I respect them, I can push through this, but you're actually not loving them back. Like if it's not the right place, if it's not the right relationship, if it's not the right friendship, like they deserve to be loved or treated better. And I don't know, I don't think a lot of people maybe share that perspective. That's how I feel, at least.
Yeah. Because of money, because of work, because we have commitments, we push against that natural village to be in places that we are uncomfortable, and then it comes back and hits us. So we should figure out ways how to balance out and also figure out environments which will respect us.
That goes back to reciprocity, right? That's if you give, you can, and in most instances should be given back in some way. So it's good to see that there's someone like you out there who's doing that kind of work. How can people who are listening to us right now get in touch and see what you're doing?
Yeah. So you can go to our website. It's reciprocitykc.org. Instagram is reciprocity.kc. So follow us on social media. Share it. If you have a healthcare worker in your life, share it. We're just in Kansas City right now. It is a very small operation and we're growing. However, I would love to make connections. It's like my current career, it's a lot about networking. So just follow us, reach out, send me a message. And it's not just me. There are so many people that want to get back. The instructors that I've talked to, mental health providers, studio owners, all of these people, no one has told me no. Everyone wants to help. So really, we just need something to bridge the people that need help and the helpers. So if you're on either side of that, please reach out. I would just love to chat and see what we can come up with.
Awesome. And I'll include everything in the show notes for this episode, of course, as always, which is at sparklaunchpodcast.com. The work you're doing is fantastic, and I can't wait to see how it expands and where you go from here. Thank you so much for joining us and talking about it.